Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome to another edition of Inside Arsenal Extra Time. Thank you very much for joining us once again. Myself and James Benge will get together to discuss what was a very, very fun night at the Emirates last night and look ahead to another big weekend of Premier League action. James, how you doing, mate? All good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for finally joining me. You kept me waiting. How was Christmas
did.
shopping?
Apologies. I was at John Lewis. First bit of Christmas shopping of the season with my wife.
First
And,
bit.
yeah, we overran a little
Done.
bit. We overran a little bit. Nice and Christmassy though, getting into the spirit. December tomorrow. Elf on the Shelf comes out for the kids tomorrow. Two very excited young kids in my house waiting for that.
Do they do advent calendars? Does
Yes.
kids still do advent?
I am looking at them up now. They are certainly not the advent calendars that I used to have when I was a kid. Believe me, I'm looking at them now.
Oh no, this
they are
isn't like healthy advent, is it?
big. They're basically bars of chocolate on each day.
Oh,
Yeah, I never had that. I didn't even have chocolate. Did you have chocolate advent calendars when you were a kid?
I mean, am I going to betray how middle class I am? Yes, I am. We had a knitted advent calendar into which would be placed, like mum would go and buy a big bag of sort of box of sort of celebrations or whatever. If it's been a good year, maybe some Lindors. So knitted, and you have one for me and one for my sister. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? How posh I am.
That is good. That's going some. I have to say, I didn't even have chocolates in my advent calendars. We just had a picture of like
Coal.
no, like I don't know, the baby Jesus or a star or something like that. It was very, very old school Christmas style. I was talking about this with my brothers the other day. We were talking about but madly we used to get really excited by it. It's like we rotated. We didn't even have one each. We rotated, and I'm one of three brothers, and we'd and my birthday's on the 21st of December, which meant I always got the 21st of December, which also meant I always got Christmas Eve, which was the biggest picture. And I always used to be really excited about it. But now it's all
21st of December birthday must be pretty rough, though.
Don't know. It was all right. It was certainly good once you get to sort of, drinking age. It's just a good laugh going out for your birthday just before Christmas. There's always a good laugh.
Yeah.
Everyone always said,
of November is like a fiddly area where
people you get double birthday presents, and it's like, oh, no, or it's double presents. Like, no, probably not. But I never used to mind it, to be honest. I thought it was all right. Yeah, I've seen some good Arsenal victories on my birthday. I remember I was at Highbury back in the day for my birthday. I think 1991. We beat Everton 4-2. Ian Wright scored all 4 goals. Anders Limpar set up all 4. It was a good birthday memory.
Well, if you depart on your birthday this year, you might just about get to Anfield in time for kickoff.
I am going to be at Centre Parks on my birthday this year, and I'm not going to be at Anfield.
Which one?
Woburn Forest.
Is that's the one down sort of near our neck, near your neck of the woods?
Yeah, not too far from sort of M1 way. So
lovely,
a bit of a Christmas tradition every other year. Woburn Forest Centre Parks would be very nice.
I was saying we will talk about Arsenal, I promise. But I was sort of saying, we're as a family we're a little behind yourself. So my sister-in-law, future sister-in-law, hopefully in the next few weeks, will be a little nephew popping along. So good luck to Amy. And I was saying the thing that excites me the most is a sort of when they get to the age where you can take them to Centre Parks and perhaps even Disneyland. I mean, Centre Parks is such a vibe. It is. I would actually go there on my own still. It's beautiful. Love it.
Yeah, I love Centre Parks. We used to do it. Well, since I was a kid, I always used to go with my family. It's always been a bit of a thing in our family. And so it's nice to do it with the kids now as well. And it's really good at Christmas. Probably gets you in the spirit and all that.
Never done Christmas.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. I'm aware that I'm very dark in this, and it's only going to get worse because the light is fading massively.
So we need to do this quickly.
I put a new light bulb in, and weirdly, when I turn the light on, it sort of produces a real strobe effect on the camera. I don't know. It sounds like weird. I don't know if it's like some crap light bulb or whatever, but it's like, honestly, it's like a strobe, and it will just do everyone's head in. So yeah, I think by the time I'm finished this in about 45 minutes time, it's pitch black. You're barely going to be able to see me, but that's why I'm not turning the light on. If people are wondering, it's because I don't want to blind you, and because it will do it. It gives a really weird light effect. Anyway, look, we're up to nearly 5 minutes, and we literally haven't even just started to talk about it. It was a fun night last night at the Emirates, wasn't it? You thawed out, yeah? That was bloody cold.
It was so cold.
Yeah.
But I mean, well, unlike yourself, I got to go inside at halftime, and you know it's got cold when sort of people are looking up and the second half has kicked off, and you're like, yeah, but it is 5-0. I'm not rushing back out there. It was cold, but the game warmed the hearts, and I guess based on where you're sat, presumably the mountain of Lons flares rather warmed you up as well.
They did indeed, and I was convinced one might end up getting lobbed on my head at one point.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of stuff was getting lobbed over from the
Yeah.
Lons fans right by us. Fortunately, no flares, but lots of stuff was getting thrown. Yeah, they didn't take their 6-0 defeat too well, I have to say. Some of their fans, but yeah, it certainly lit up the Emirates, didn't it? It was a bit of a spectacle. I'm sure both clubs are going to end up getting fined because of it, but it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, I choose to believe the red flares at 4-0 were a tribute to what Arsenal had put on before. And if they were, I think that's hashtag class from Lons fans, and about the only bit of sort of class we saw in that 90 minutes, which was, yeah, I mean, it's not great, is it?
No, they weren't great. They weren't great. Was it a case of them not being great, or Arsenal just being very, very good? I think Arsenal was certainly very, very
good. I
good.
meant the fans. I actually thought Lons were okay, the football team. I think that's what made this win so impressive.
Yeah, I thought Lons had a decent sort of 15-minute spell between 4-0 and 5-0 where you're like, yeah, they look a little bit threatening. I think who's their striker? I forgot his name.
Wahi. Wahi.
He gave Saliba. He turned Saliba a couple of times and got him behind him. And I was talking about this on my show this morning. It's like when someone actually gets the better of Saliba in a situation like that, it's really noticeable because it barely ever happens. And he did it a couple of times in that half. So he had something about him, I thought. And he's shown he's had something about him this season anyway. But yeah, I thought he looked pretty lively at times. But I mean, Arsenal were great, weren't they? And I think it was quite funny that all the sort of narrative leading up to this game was about Arsenal's struggles in attack, and they're not the same as they were last season and all that. And then they go and score 5 goals in the first half and absolutely blew Lons away. It was a lot of fun.
I mean, Mikel Arteta must have been just, when that first goal and then the second goal went in, he just must have been feeling so smug, because he tells us in the press conference beforehand, look, it's game state. We don't score early. And I think it's 1 goal in the first 20 minutes in the Premier League this season. Because we don't score early, we're playing against teams that increasingly are like, we'll take the 0-0 draw here. And, I was kind of like, well, I think that's some of it, but not all of it. And then his argument is just made in emphatic fashion, and he gets to sort of roll out that game state line again in his post-match press conference. I wasn't in that, but I could believe that Mikel was, having read the quotes, I could believe he was feeling quite pleased with himself after his encounters with the media on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, 12 goals in 3 home games in the Champions League. Obviously, 6 against Lens, 4 against PSV, and 2 against Sevilla. Do you think that is purely the fact that teams are opening up more in the Champions League when they come to the Emirates? They're not defending like we see in Premier League teams do. Do you think it is more down to game state and Arsenal scoring early? What do you kind of put Arsenal's success in the Champions League in terms of attacking output down to?
I mean, the other thing might be that these teams are like, I don't know. I don't think they're sort of at the Sheffield. I wouldn't, be rude enough to say they're at a sort of Sheffield United, Burnley level, but take that Lens team and put it in. I mean, it's 6th in Ligue 1. I don't think they defended as well as Brentford or as Everton, as teams like that. I think to an extent, there's just a sort of individual quality mismatch where Saka, Havertz, Ødegaard, whoever you care to mention, are just playing players that can't really keep up with them. I know that there'll be some sort of people out there that say this is a sort of small-minded, Prem-focused view of the world, but like it shouldn't be surprising that Everton and, for instance, can field better players than Lens. They've got a hell of a lot more money to play with. I think that some of it's that, but like you say, I think especially the PSV game, PSV came to play. I think Lens as well were willing to go man to man. Saka in particular got a lot of joy, didn't he, just because he was up against his fullback quite often, helped that Tomiyasu was overlapping. Yeah, I think if you're a top European team playing in the Champions League, you can't really play, 10 behind the ball, 11 behind the ball, let's suffer and hold out, because you're one of the best teams in your division. So when are you playing that week in, week out? Whereas Everton, not Brentford, the teams we're thinking of, they do that. They do that 15 30 times a season, maybe. So 15 to, like, that's the thing, is I don't think Lens could have come to the Emirates, stuck everyone behind the ball, and actually been that much more effective than they were playing the way they did.
Mm-hmm. A lot's been made about the fact that it was the first time this season that we saw Saka, Havertz, Odegaard, Jesus, and Martinelli play any. I hadn't noticed that until that stat got trotted out after the team news was announced. I didn't even know that. It hadn't come into my mind. But that was the first time they'd even been on the pitch for a single minute altogether. And you're probably looking at it and think that is Arteta's, certainly at the start of the season, maybe before form came into it and disappointing performances came into it, that was probably Arteta's, in his thinking, his main front five, you would say. And it was the first time we'd see them. And the fact all 5 of them scored in that first half, they combined really well. Havertz obviously got things up and running, which was really good. I think backing up that goal against Brentford, and I thought we'll talk about him, but I thought it was his best performance in an Arsenal shirt yesterday. Well, definitely was his best performance in an Arsenal shirt yesterday. Saka doing what he does. Martinelli just loving life in the Champions League, absolutely loving it. Gabriel Jesus, who's goal a game striker in the Champions League at the moment, just fantastic. And I thought it was really important that Odegaard got his goal as well, and a lovely finish it was. But there was so much to like about that first half performance, and I think a lot of it was they did have space to run into. Martinelli did get against the fullback one-on-one. Saka did get against the fullback one-on-one, and you could just see it was almost like the weight off their shoulders. They weren't suddenly being doubled up on or tripled up on, as Saka had spoke about after the Brentford game. There was just suddenly some just open green grass ahead of them, and they could really sort of get their head up and go. And it just looked like a completely different Arsenal team that we've seen at times this season.
Yeah, I think what Arsene Wenger would sort of term the automatisms are starting to build a little bit. I mean, we forget with Odegaard, and I very briefly spoke to him about this after the game. He's not playing out of possession. He is not playing anything like the same role anymore. Sometimes he sort of, especially if like a Rice is playing and Jorginho, he will be the more advanced, in that 4-4-2 they make defensively. But he's spending a lot of time deeper when Arsenal kind of get near to the box. It's, I know that is a bit more familiar for him, but he is quite a bit more withdrawn and, less in those sort of shooting positions that he got to last season. I think Zinchenko and Rice are starting to build a bit of a relationship and an understanding as well. It's maybe not Partey levels of Zinchenko and Partey, but Rice knows where to be, and that is sort of, those pieces now look like they fit in a bit better around all these established relationships we've had and we've seen over at least the past 2 seasons. So it was one of the first games I thought where it all seemed like you could sort of make it all stitch together in your head quite nicely. And I didn't really think Arsenal were there that often before tonight, but certainly were there tonight or last night.
Bukayo Saka's got 7 goal involvement in the Champions League so far this season. I saw your tweet yesterday saying, it's just a couple of months ago he hadn't even played a Champions League game before. Now he's the lead. No one's got more goal contributions in the group stages than him. I mean, we shouldn't even be surprised really at that sort of stat now, because he's just done so many remarkable things since he's come through in the space of 5 years. And I don't know if you were there. You were at the presser on Friday, and Moose asked Mikel if Bukayo was world class, didn't he? And Mikel sort of fudged it a little bit. He said, "Well, he played at a World Cup, plays in a national team, so I don't know what world class means, but he is a top player, that's for sure." And I was watching him yesterday, and I was looking at all the numbers after the game, and I was thinking, I mean, he just is world class. I don't think he's already there. I know, and people that phrase gets banded out a lot. And what is world class? Is it Messi and Ronaldo standard, or is there is that elite class? And is there a sort of layer below it that you would call world class, where you have the rest? Basically, you got obviously the top players, and then the rest. And I look at it, and I think the simple question is there any other right winger in the world that you would have at Arsenal ahead of Bukayo Saka? And I think but maybe take Mo Salah out of it, just because of his output and the goals. The sheer number of goals and assists he scores every single season. In terms of age-wise, it's a completely different ballpark, obviously, Saka and Salah. But you sort of take Salah out of it. There's no one else that I would want on that wing in world football right now than Bukayo Saka, and I don't think there's anyone else that Mikel Arteta would want, Arsenal would want. I don't think there's anyone else that Gareth Southgate would want or England would want. And I think just surely because of that, I think he has to be world class. Surely he is. He's just a world class player.
No debate about it in my mind as well. I mean, almost to be honest, I think it's a good question to ask. So is Bukayo Saka world class? To ask of the manager, it's interesting. You might get a really good response from it. But equally, I was sort of like, when that question first came out, I was like, well, is this a debate anymore? Like, of course he is. And part of it is because this game for me is kind of one of the exceptions in that it was a game where I felt really blown away by Saka's performances. I haven't. A lot of the time I've been like, yeah, Saka was fine today. Luckily I don't do player ratings because I'd find him quite fidgety to rate. He's been fine. It sort of feels like he's not been at top gear, and he has, 17 goal involvements in 19 games or something like that was the stat I saw.
I think that was before yesterday, wasn't it?
And like we say, he's ahead of Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham, guys like that for the most goal involvements in the Champions League. I think that to me is the sort of definitive proof of world class. Is he can be a little bit off it and he will still deliver the moments that win the game. I mean, that take your pick of your favourite Saka moment from the first half. The run on the way to the 5th goal, the goal itself, but that pass for Jesus, that is a Modric level, or not Modric. I mean, that is a top tier right winger. Just the composure, the ability to react in an instant and work the ball to Jesus. I love that. He's really, really special. And thank goodness Arsenal have got him for a few more years, because even if he doesn't get much better, even if he doesn't develop, like you say, second best right winger in the world, and Mo Salah will go to Saudi Arabia or somewhere soon, and then we can say best right winger in the world, because nothing you do in the Pro League counts.
No, he's a joy to watch. He really is. And I agree, he's definitely not been completely on it this season yet. But, I think a large part of that is the way he's now being defended and marked and handled by opposition teams, which says a lot, because he's been so, I think large chunks of the sort of pre-match chat the opposition will be having in the build-up to playing Arsenal will be, right, what do we do with Bukayo Saka? How do we stop Bukayo Saka? Because if we stop him, we stop, basically a massive amount of Arsenal's threat. We stop either goals himself or assists himself. And so I'd imagine they spend days working out what they're going to do with Bukayo Saka now. And I think that says a lot in terms of just how good he is and how other teams focus on him. But
without wishing to go off on a tangent here and take it to something I know we're going to talk about, I think one of the things, if you were game planning for Saka, what you might say is, well, let's make him sort of do, hit a cross on his left foot, not get to the byline for a cutback, not get a shot away. Let's make him cross. Now that you have Kai Havertz, if he can sort of maintain this form, suddenly it's sort of like the way you stop Saka allows Arsenal to get more out of Havertz. And that, I think, is the exciting thing of where this attack could get to if players keep up their form. There's, it becomes whack-a-mole for the defence, and you hit that Saka, don't let Saka shoot, don't let Saka get to the byline mole. But like literally at the same time, it's here comes Havertz, back post. That's what we've given up, because you're going to have to give up something against Arsenal. So that is a complete tangent, but it's just something that your comments made me think of.
I like the whack-a-mole reference.
I think that's what Arsenal need to aspire to be. Is sort of like this week you can decide to stop Saka and Martinelli, but sorry guys, that means you're going to have to deal with an informed Havertz and Jesus, and not a million miles away from getting to there, I don't think.
No. Right, from one excellent attacker to another, Gabriel Jesus. You spoke to Gabriel Jesus yesterday. You waited in the mixed zone, I imagine, for about an hour and a half after the game.
No, he was really early. He was quick.
Was he? He wanted to get home, did he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Fair play. Well, I've got some really interesting comments from him. I've got a few of them on the screen here if you're watching on YouTube. There's plenty of others which we'll talk about in a minute, actually. I thought really interesting stuff from him in terms of transfer stuff and all the links with, I presume no names were thrown at him like Tony or Osimhen or anything like that. No. So we'll talk about those in a minute. But in terms of these, I thought this was interesting because the quotes that he gave over in Brazil during the international break caused quite a stir, didn't they? There was a lot of talking around them, and people. I'm not sure if Arteta was asked about it. I think he was, but and it was a bit strange. A striker saying, scoring goals isn't my best thing. But I don't think anyone's. I think it's pretty obvious that Gabriel Jesus is not his strongest point. Is not scoring goals. But anyway, it was clearly, I thought, probably taken out of context a little bit. And he spoke about it to you guys yesterday, where he basically said people don't understand sometimes and take it out of context and say, "Oh, Gabby's strongest point isn't scoring." I said this, but not in that way. I have other qualities as well, but I can score goals. I can score, guys. I know I'm not scoring every game. It's not easy. Let's be honest. I don't miss a lot of chances. I'm not sure that is necessarily true. He does miss a few. I think it's not about he doesn't know how to score. Sometimes I have to be in the box more. That is one thing I'm working on. Tonight, I was in the box more. I know what my qualities are. I know what I can bring to the team. I can score. I can also help other things like opening spaces. But the only people who can see it are those who watch the game and understand. Those who don't understand will say, "Oh, he didn't score today, but maybe I run an open space for someone." He's absolutely bang on. Gabriel Jesus is not just about scoring goals. Yes, you want your striker to score all the time, every single game at Erling Haaland style. But those sort of strikers don't grow on trees, unfortunately. That's why Erling Haaland is so special. That's why Lewandowski has been so special for the last 10 years. And Harry Kane has been so special for the last decade as well, because of the sheer amount of goals they score. But Jesus is still a top level striker. He's got 4 in 4 in the Champions League now this season. His Champions League record as well, not just at Arsenal, but when you factor City in, is exceptional. And that is elite level as well, of course. And he does what he brings to the team, how much he makes Arsenal better. When he plays this season, Arsenal have just been so much better. When he plays as a striker, Arsenal have been so much better. They've scored more goals. Saka's been better. Martinelli's been better. And it's because of Jesus. I said at the start of the season, I was convinced he was going to have an absolute blinder of a season this season. And even though the injuries have sort of stopped him a bit, and the fact he's had to play out wide has stopped him a little bit, I'm still sitting here right now convinced he's going to get around the 20 goal mark this season. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a goal every other game striker last season. I think I haven't checked the numbers, but I think he must be at least that this season. The funny thing about those quotes, and you'll well know, sometimes in the mix zone, it's like kind of drawing blood from a stone with every club. And then there are times when someone comes to you with a point to prove. So great questions by our friend Tom Canton over at football.london. But equally, sort of Tom asked the question of, why is it going so well for you in the Champions League? And why is that not translated to the Premier League as much? And so there's no prompting there about what he said in Brazil. Like, no one mentioned that to him before Gabby brought it up, and a semi-lengthy monologue on on all things what he said in Brazil. I think he feels like he's got to get that off his chest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a degree of frustration at the way that people talked about, like you said, those comments, because he is not the best finisher in the world, the best, absolute out and out scorer. But was it Pep Guardiola calling the best pressing forward in the world? I think he's right up there as the best link forwards in the world alongside your Kane. So, he was right. I would pick Erling Haaland to put a chance away, but if I wanted to play a high pressing system, I'd have Gabriel Jesus over Erling Haaland. Just for that, I'm having Haaland in my team. He had something he wanted to get off his chest, and more power to him. It's great to talk to Gabby. He really understands the game. A lovely quote, which I don't think we'll come onto, so I want to bring it up. I sort of asked him right at the end. I was like, "What similarities do you see between your team and the City teams that went deep?" And there's just this line where he goes, "Oh, Arsenal's a big team. We don't fear anyone. And come the last month of the season, we'll just see who's there." There's a steal with him where you're like, that we'll see who's there was very much a thing of, we'll still be in the Champions League in the last month of the season. Then we'll just sort of see who we have to polish off on their way to Wembley, which I like that attitude. And I think that's going to help Arsenal a lot.
Yeah. I think missing out last season would have really hurt Jesus, especially given, obviously he left City. City went on and won it all. He was, they were very close with Arsenal to sort of leading Arsenal to something great. And I think that would have hurt him quite a bit It would have hurt everyone, but I do think him and Zinchenko, especially given the club that they'd left behind and what they went on to win, I think would have hurt them a lot. I think there's going to be some real motivation this season if Arsenal manage to get themselves in a sort of similar position come the business end of the season. He also spoke a lot about, where he was asked about transfers, wasn't he, about Arsenal being linked with, like you said, so no names were mentioned. They didn't throw Osimhen or Tony at him, but that Arsenal being linked with strikers. And he spoke about it. He said some quite interesting stuff in that, in terms of how he felt about it all, didn't he?
Yeah, it sort of said, I mean, that's where he also brings in the stuff about his qualities, but effectively his sort of answer to any questions about, is someone going to come in and replace me, was bring it on. I'm not worried. And, he showed there's so much more to him than goals. And if Arsenal are looking to kind of get an upgrade on him, he's very clear of like, you're going to need to upgrade in a lot of aspects of your play. And, that's going to be the real challenge. We all expect them to, give a strong look at the centre forward market in the summer. And I'm sort of really struggling to pick out more than one or two names that are that clear upgrade on Gabriel Jesus. We've talked a lot, haven't we, about finding the player that's a step up on Eddie Nketiah, but getting someone that can challenge Jesus when he's in this. If Jesus can stay fit, it's such a hard task. You're talking a handful of strikers.
See, I've never bought into the idea that it would be an upgrade. Arsenal will be looking for an upgrade. I think they'll be looking for another option. Another sort of player that you could potentially rotate with Jesus and Nketiah and just share the burden a little bit. But upgrade, I think it's very, very hard to get an upgrade on Gabriel Jesus. I honestly think he's that good, and I think what he brings to the team when he's playing, he just makes Arsenal so much better. He didn't, like Mikel said, he changed Arsenal's world last season. He did. It just absolutely transformed Arsenal in an attacking sense last season when he was fit. And those first few months of the season were exhilarating with Jesus at the front of it all. And we've seen already this season, it's a very similar situation when he's playing. He just needs to, like you say, stay fit. If he can stay fit for the whole season, I think Arsenal are going to be in a really, really strong position come April time, because he is that good. He said, I was looking at some of the quotes now in terms of potential strikers coming in. He said, this happens, maybe it can be agents talking about a lot of things. I'm not the most experienced, but I've seen a lot of things in football. Sometimes it is like this. It happened when I was at City, even with Aguero and me scoring. I was scoring a lot and people were linking everyone. So here, I don't care about this. I know my qualities and I know what I bring to the team. So like you said, that is it's a challenge almost to anyone who's going to come in. It's like, bring it on. I'm here. And if you do come in, you're going to have to try and get past me.
And correct me if I'm wrong. He got a year. So obviously there were times where he was ahead of Aguero in the pecking order, but he got a year between Aguero retiring and Haaland arriving, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
I do think there's a little bit where he might think, I'm speculating here, but that he might kind of think like, he maybe never really got a fair crack of the whip at City as the number 9. I think he was always sort of fighting to convince. I mean, he would play brilliantly, but everyone would sort of go, "Where's Aguero?" And then he would play brilliantly, but already the talk was of Erling Haaland. And
I think it's very hard to shake that tag off, isn't it? Once you spent years as basically Aguero's understudy, which was always sort of, even when Aguero left, you've still got that tag, I think, of Aguero's understudy. Even though he's not at the club anymore, you're still viewed in the same way because everyone's so used to viewing you like that. And I think you have to basically move to a new club like he did to kind of be the main man, even. And so I think that was a sort of large chunk of it as well. It's just you spend so long at one place, and during that entire time you're looked at in one certain way, that it's very hard to change that view no matter what happens and how much the landscape changes, I think. But he's certainly the main man at Arsenal, 100%. And whoever comes in, if someone comes in, whether it be in January, which I doubt, but certainly in the summer, they're going to find it very difficult to get Gabriel Jesus out of the team if he's fit.
I'd be really excited to see sort of Jesus scrapping with whoever the rival to his shirt is, especially in training. Like, get those two. Like, underrated how much of an absolute pest Gabriel Jesus is for opposition players. So get him up against whoever's trying to take his starting berth off him, and I'd pay good money for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Was it Arteta said he brings chaos?
Yes,
he? Yeah,
I love it.
He certainly does bring chaos. So Kai Havertz. I think pretty much this time last week, we spent quite a lot of time bemoaning Havertz's performance against Burnley, and it was one that that one really disappointed me because I'd liked what I'd seen from him against Newcastle, and it was another game. I can't remember which one it was.
Was it the Champions? Oh, the West Ham game. He was quite good. Or was it the Champions League?
No, it was Sevilla. Was it Sevilla? I think it was Sevilla. And then he disappointed against Burnley, and that sort of, it sort of sucked the life out of me a little bit. I was like, oh no, we're back to here again. And 1 o'clock forward about a week, and we've got a little bit of egg on our faces at the moment, and it's great, and I'm delighted that we have as well. Absolutely delighted we have that. He appears to be finding himself a little bit. That was a huge moment against Brentford at the weekend. He'd had the pity penalty, whatever you want to call it, against Bournemouth, that I think we all tried to hope was going to be the turning point, but in the grand scheme of things, it probably never was going to be.
He must have known, mustn't he? What this penalty is about.
Yeah, and the guy scored the winning goal in a Champions League final, and then I don't think a penalty at 3-0 is going to really change anything against Bournemouth away. Convincing win. He still needed that big moment, and to come off the bench and score the winner in a London derby to send Arsenal top in injury time. That's a big moment. And you could see just in his celebration at Brentford, it was completely different. It wasn't like a Bournemouth where you could almost, not embarrassed, but he was getting shoved over to the fans and everything like that. And everyone was slapping him on the head. And you could see against Brentford, it was a release, the celebration. It was a release from him. You could see he was pumped up and everything. And it was a huge moment, one I think we've all felt he needed. And then he backed that up yesterday. He scored the first goal, got things up and running. And it wasn't just a goal. I just thought his all-round performance was really good. There was some really nice moments. I thought his play for the third goal was really, really good. Winning the ball, driving forward, showing a bit of intent, laying the ball off. There was that lovely bit down at the North Bank in the second half where he sort of protected it by the corner flag, but then did a couple of tricks, completely done the man, and set up the chance for Odegaard, which ended up being saved. It was just it was a good performance. It was his best performance in the Arsenal shirt, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, it certainly wasn't his best performance in England. So I saw quite a lot of him at Chelsea, especially when they were going to the Champions League final, and under Thomas Tuchel, and there were better performances, but I don't remember. There will be people that have seen more games of his there than I, but I don't remember a game where Kai Havertz was having as much fun as I got the sense he was having last night. And that for me is a huge step, because there was clearly something of a confidence issue at Chelsea and early on at Arsenal. There are a lot of these newfangled Arsenal chants that I simply cannot stand. I don't like Saliba's one. I hate Erdegaard's one. Kai Havertz is the worst chant of the whole firmament. But it's so clear how much the Emirates Stadium, the away fan base, everyone wants good things for Havertz. I don't think he entirely believed that. We saw that, didn't we? With those quotes in the international break where he was talking about, I have to prove a bit more because I've come from Chelsea. And whilst there was a sort of degree of truth in that, I got the sense that Havertz didn't really understand how much of a real groundswell of desire for him to make it good there was around the Emirates and around Arsenal. I think people really wanted Havertz to be different. They knew what the best version of Kai Havertz could mean to Arsenal and their hopes long term. And I can't believe that sort of after that 90 minutes, even if it was, not the toughest opposition, that he's not going to be striding into Colney on Friday morning, feeling a little bit lighter, a little bit happier. And we don't know. I don't know Kai Havertz. I've interviewed him once before. I get the feeling that will make a difference.
Yeah,
and that could be huge.
Well, that one little moment when he did do those little tricks down at the corner flag in front of the North Bank, and he wouldn't have tried that, I don't think, 2 games ago. He just wouldn't have had the belief and the confidence to do that sort of thing, the little drag back, the Cruyff, and all that. He's been playing since the moment he arrived at Arsenal. He's looked like he's had just a concrete weight around his shoulders. He's just given the air of someone like that. He just didn't have that look about him yesterday. He just looked a lot freer. He was running himself. He was
pushing
himself. He was driving forward.
He was fouling loads. I liked it.
He was fouling. I don't know how he didn't get booked, to be unfair.
Yeah.
I don't know how he managed to not get booked. He should have done it. And then he's got that is a part to his game. I think the whole,
I like it.
He does foul a lot. But yeah, it was a lot to like. I mean, it's stepping stones, obviously. It's far from, this is no guarantees that he's going to go on now and be a mainstay in the team and make an impact every single game. But, you know, we've been waiting to see signs like this. And so I think the fact that we're now seeing them, absolutely, we should be pointing them out and hoping it is a big turning point. And again, the fact that was, you know, he was part of that front five that played together for the first time yesterday. The fact he's got Jesus ahead of him now. The fact, like you said, that Saka and Martinelli, if they are going to get doubled up on, then that might feed into servicing Havertz more. You know, it's encouraging, I think, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes with him now. And you know, it's 3 goals now this season. It's suddenly not looking anywhere near as bad in terms of output. It's some key assists as well for him. So hopefully it can continue. Mikel, understandably, very happy with him yesterday. I saw the quotes in the press conference. And just in and around, like where I was in the stands, you can just feel like what you were talking about there. People really want him to do well, and you can feel it, you can hear it. You know, people all saying to each other, "Oh, that was good, that was good." It's just a little bit of excitement that they're beginning to see the player that we all know he is. He's a very good player. There's no doubt about it. You don't achieve what Havertz achieved in his early career so far by not being a good player. He clearly is. And yeah, long may that continue. Hopefully, we see him continue to build on that as it go forward. Did you think it was a penalty?
Is this the handball?
The penalty? No, the penalty that Arsenal got for Martinelli.
Oh yeah. Well, it was a UEFA penalty, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like in that a footballer had arms, and that was their first mistake. Like,
I didn't think it was a penalty.
Right. Okay. Here's a pitch for you. Champions League final. It's the 88th minute. Arsenal are 1-0 up. If you're Mikel Arteta, do you just chop everyone's arms off?
Arms off, yeah, you do at the moment.
Just play it safe. Play it safe. It's ludicrous. I mean, like, it's not a penalty, but it's a penalty because UEFA have effectively.
He didn't. He was just. It's just a defender. He just literally had his
arm.
Just existed,
didn't he? He was like.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to elbow Martinelli in the face. His arm was just out, and I just think that was really harsh. I thought it was very harsh on Lons to give that as a penalty. But who am I? I mean, the Newcastle.
I think Arsenal had one as well that was like was it Havertz? It might have been that was a carbon copy of the Newcastle penalty.
Was it? Like, yeah, I mean, obviously, I didn't see that on the screen. I saw the appeals, and I said to Dad, "Oh, they're checking. It's handball. It'll probably be given because it looks like, you know, it's almost, if the ball hits your arm, it's almost impossible not to be a penalty, judging by what happened in Paris the night before." So I was surprised they didn't give it in the end, but I haven't seen a replay of it.
I mean, people say they want consistency. This is what consistency looks like.
And the Newcastle one was a joke. It was genuinely an absolute joke. I mean, how that can ever in a million years be given as a penalty? It doesn't. I mean, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't come into it, the timing of the game and stuff, and the game state in it. But to do that in the 97th minute at 1-0, to give that as a penalty, is farcical. And I was so, you know, the VAR obviously got stepped down. I saw that, so that's basically UEFA admitting that they made a mistake. But the referee went over. He still agreed. He looked at the screen and still agreed to give that as a penalty. And so the referee has to take just as much responsibility for that as the VAR. It just shows such a weakness in referees to go to the screen, to look at it, to be told, you know, you've obviously said no on the pitch, but then to be told in your ear by your mate, "Oh, this should be a penalty," and to go to the screen to look at that and agree, it's just it's a real sign of weakness. I think I don't see why referees cannot just go to the screen and basically just say, "No way, is that a penalty?" How can
I think that happened in the Copenhagen Bayern game, and I completely agree with you. I mean, for one thing, the VAR is not telling you to award penalties, only advising you to take a look. Like, you are then entitled to, you know, stand by your view. I mean, like, frankly, I think I admire referees quite a bit more usually when they sort of say, grey area. I think I want to stick with what I said in the first place.
100%. And that should happen far more. The Wolves game, Wolves against Fulham, that last minute penalty. Now, the referee's seen that on the pitch and said no. And so he's seen it and said no. And just because the VAR said you should go and have a look at it, once you look in the screen and you think in real time, you've seen it in real time, not on slow motion, like when you're looking at the camera. So the referee knew, he had the picture in his head of the exact incident in real time. Just should not be changing his mind there just because he's seen it in slow motion on a screen. It's got to be more sensible. And I know Arteta got hammered by everyone jumping on the bandwagon after his comments, but he's just been proven absolutely right ever since that rant. And it's just not working. It's genuinely not working. I hate it. I would, if I could flick a switch like that and get rid of VAR, I would do it in an absolute instant. I just do not see any good that it's bringing to football, and I think it's getting worse, and that's a really scary thing, I think.
I'm sure we wouldn't talk about referee decisions if we got rid of VAR.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, obviously would, but at least I think I prefer the fact that it's just a decision made in real time at real genuine speed, rather than people then. It's worse when you're watching people make mistakes when they're looking at it on about 20 screens and they're still making mistakes. That just bugs me, and I hate it being slowed down into slow motion.
And in the ground where even us in the press box are kind of flying blind.
Mm-hmm.
That Lens one in the first half, I had no idea what was happening.
Mm-hmm. Right, I'm going to move on to some questions before we end this. We've just got a few sort of questions or comments to go through. Vetpara has got a few sort of posts here. It's sort of based on Havertz. Says, I really hope the fan base stick with Havertz. I think he has so many good attributes in his makeup, just needs a little time to come out for us to get familiar with it. The back post run is tailor-made for left footers, attackers like Odegaard, Saka, Vieira. As soon as he really starts taking defenders with him, it's going to free up space for Odegaard on the edge of the box. He's also perfect fill Jesus' space when he comes deeper into midfield. Also, I think his defensive contribution work rate has been criminally understated. I think because we are waiting for him to explode in an attacking sense, our eyes are almost not trained to look for his defensive work. Finally, in his first interview in Germany, I remember him saying that his brain would need to get used to midfield again. And I have full sympathy that playing forward will be different from playing with your back to goal. Intriguing signing, really. Think it will come good. Some interesting comments there on Havertz. Obviously, we've spoken about him already in this show, but I thought it was worth bringing up.
Yeah,
and I think people have stuck largely with Havertz. Obviously, some of the comments on social media and stuff like that you're always going to get, but certainly in the stadium, there's occasionally there's been sort of little moans and groans when it was really not working out and his touch was poor or something like that. But largely, on the whole, in the stadiums, home and away, there's been nothing but support, and you've spoken about that already. And people really wanting him to succeed.
100%. I'm just pulling up some numbers here on his defensive stuff because I do think like we said, sometimes the fouls are a good thing. I think there's a lot of, the fouls that everyone's talking about now, the cynically stopping a counter attack. I do sometimes think, Kai, you don't need to worry about that, mate. There's Saliba and Declan Rice behind you. It's fine. But it's some stuff I'm really impressed by. His work in the press. You can kind of tell that there's that German gegenpressing side to him. I think the minute Arsenal lose the ball, he's on it. He's ready to challenge. Just looking at it here as well, you're talking about a guy that's kind of making about as many ball recoveries per 90 as Martinelli, as Jesus, as Odegaard, and these guys are top defensive forwards, if you know what I mean. And Havertz uses his, not necessarily his strength, but like his physicality, his shape quite well. I thought he did a good job as well when he was receiving the ball last night of just always making sure that he's this big target for the Lens midfielders to get around. It's still not perfect, but kind of, that bit that Vetpar ended on at the end as well about kind of, we do all need to remember that he's just spent 3 years playing centre forward in one of the most chaotic teams in world football. Like, Give him time to learn to be an 8, and it's clear he's progressing, isn't it?
Yeah, fingers crossed that continues. I always think, and I've mentioned this before, I know I have, but I always go back to Tomiyasu and the interview I had of him last season at one point, and talking about the difference Arsenal had made in a year and how massive it was and what he put that down to. And it was just said to me, it was just because we understand Arteta. We knew what he wanted the year before, but we just couldn't quite put it into action. But now we actually understand it. And I always keep going back to that whenever I think of Havertz and the clear struggles he's had so far settling in. It's the fact he's adapting to Arteta. He's adapting to a new position and a new club, even though it is in a club in the same league. And, sort of marry that all together. And it's maybe no surprise that he hasn't absolutely hit the ground running the way we were all hoping he was going to. But hopefully this is a start and we are going to see him settling in more and more. This was an interesting one. This is from Max. He says, I'm always keen to know what your manager rating would be for Arteta after each game. Even though we had the victory in the bag by half-time, I think Arteta did well to zoom out and consider the congested December fixtures. Early subs for the fullback was interesting. What did you make of that? Saka and Rice got a well-deserved rest, and in general, I think the whole team conserved energy well. pressing and resting as a unit. I also don't think this was the moment for youth players to get their minutes. Like you said, senior impactors need to keep their minutes up. We are undoubtedly going to need them over the next few weeks. And there's one here from Mr. Supplement Scene who said, sort of ties into it, that I wanted to discuss. As many fans on the Arsenal forum I visit are upset that Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly didn't get a run out despite the scoreline never in doubt. Wonder what your view is on that. And so, yeah, in terms of Arteta and your rating for Arteta, when I actually do my ratings for goal, when I'm there doing stuff for goal, I do have to rate Arteta actually in those ratings. I give the manager a rating as well. And I was thinking about this.
It's a hard one always, isn't it?
It is hard. I mean, the team selection was exactly what I thought he was going to do. I got that right. My predicted 11, it was the 11 I thought. So there was no surprises there. He went strong. I wanted him to go strong. This was a chance to win the group. You do that. You take that. You don't want to go to Holland with any sort of jeopardy for that last game. So you go as strong as possible. So I was happy he did that. I think he did that well. I thought the subs were interesting. I admit I was moaning to my dad at one point. I moaned when Ben White came on. I said to Dad, I was like, why are you doing that? Why do you need to bring Ben White on for 45 minutes? Why risk him? It's 5-0. Why risk Ben White? And then it's when some of the other side, like Jorginho, came on, I was like, do we need to see Jorginho now? It's 5-0. Can you not bring on a Nwaneri or something like that? So during the game, I did moan about it a bit, but then on the way home, I was talking to Dan. I was like, I can probably see why he's done that actually, because as fun as it is for the crowd to see some youngsters play, he's got to manage this squad and he's got to manage the minutes of players who aren't playing as much and they still need to be involved. And so Kiwior clearly needed to play and he did that. Ben White, maybe from a fitness point of view or a medical point of view, it was good to get those 45 minutes under his belt because he's not played that much recently. And, you've got to, you kept Reece Nelson, you gave him a big contract, so you've got to play him really rather than, giving a youngster some minutes just for the sake of it. You've got to keep Nelson happy and keep him ticking over. And that's why you bring him on and Nketiah on and Jorginho on as well. So I think ultimately he got pretty much everything right yesterday, Arteta. So if you're going to judge him with a rating, I think he's got to be at least an 8 out of 10 for last night, really. He didn't really make any mistakes.
Yeah, I think he got everything right. And you really nicely laid out there the reason why he brought on 5 senior players. I think it's also true that, what am I going to learn about Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis Skelly at 5-0 up? Like, Jesus said that to us last night. Like they didn't want to slow down, but they do because they're 5-0 up. Everyone does it. I still just think I just would have quite liked to have seen it. I think it's nice. I mean, I agree. You almost have to pick 3 players. It didn't surprise me at all that the fullbacks came off early. I think it's sort of a tacit admission that, look, we know that Zinchenko and Tomiyasu maybe can't take the load that a Rice or Saka can take.
Mikel keeps pointing out in the last couple of weeks how light they are defensively as well. He's made a big point of it in a couple of questions now, a couple of answers now, which does make get my radar up in January.
Different position, even if you literally ask him about midfield, he'll talk about defense.
Yeah.
My immediate reaction was the same as yours, and I think the alternative view is valid as well. Look, get these minutes in Jorginho's legs. I just still, even with that, I think it would just have been a really nice moment, and that also has validity. Like, it's okay to just say, it's 5-0. Let's have some fun. Let's see if Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly can do anything in these circumstances, in these scenarios, because I didn't necessarily think we needed to see get more of info and get more minutes in Nketiah. Probably the same with Jorginho as well. I know he's not played since the international break, or he's not played much, but I don't particularly think that Arsenal are going to be light on Jorginho minutes, and given some of the fixtures on the horizon, like the Villa game's not far off now, I would just not want to be gambling that something random might happen in 30 minutes.
But imagine,
I think we'll learn more chucking 2 players in alongside the B team against PSV, and then packing that with packing the bench with youngsters as well.
Yeah. Put yourself in Reece Nelson's shoes. I imagine if you're Reece Nelson sitting on the bench and Miles Lewis Skelly comes on ahead of you in the Champions League when you've not played at all, really.
Yeah.
you'd be
He's
fuming,
valid.
wouldn't you? And Arteta would know that as well. So as much as for the fans, it's a nice thing. I think for those players who are, senior players who want minutes and need to play, that sort of nice moment of Nwaneri and Skelly coming on for them would be a, real sort of.
My favourite Twitter subcategory are the people that think Mikel Arteta doesn't rate the academy or young players. You're like, have you seen what he's done with Eddie Nketiah? I think there's this thing like, he didn't give Nketiah his debut, didn't give Saka his debut. Sort of like, no, but he built the team around Bukayo Saka. When he wasn't a superstar.
I don't buy into that at all. I think it would certainly send out a nice message to the academy boys coming up, though, wouldn't it? If one of them did get on, we've seen a lot of them on the bench towards the end of last season, and a few times this season, and none of them have come on yet, really, have they? And in those sort of games, and it would be nice for one day for them to come on, and maybe that PSV game is the one. I think that is the one where if you are going to play some youngsters, it probably that's one to do it, and because Reece will be starting that game, those second string players will be the ones starting that match, and so you won't be treading on any toes in the second half if you bring on one of the youngsters for them. So,
well, and given injuries to sort of Smith Rowe, Vieira, guys like that, if you want to fully rotate the squad, that probably does mean you have to play at least one of the sort of more attack-minded youngsters just to balance the team out. And I'd say do that over playing Ødegaard, Saka, whoever.
The thing is, Arteta, I honestly,
he's gonna play Saka.
He'll let Saka end up starting in Holland, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't. I wouldn't be at all surprised. It would be utterly mental if he did, but it wouldn't be at all surprised. It's like Arteta. He does struggle to rest players. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he starts that. I mean, you can't do. I mean, you can literally leave everyone at home now, can't you? It will be a tough game though in PSV. We saw that last season, so whoever does play in that one might be up against it. So I've done that one, haven't I? Is that the last one? Oh, this is what I just wanted to end on. This one from Christian, just basically easy statement: never sell Kiwior or Tomiyasu. They are just too good. I tell you what. I really, really like Jakub Kiwior. I mean, Tommy was great yesterday. Tommy was great yesterday. It was a brilliant first half performance. If it had stayed on any longer than 45 minutes, he would have been my man of the match. I thought he was great, and he's been great all season. And it's fantastic to see him playing at this level again now. After it's a fairly difficult times at points last season, where many started to question whether he would stick around for too long. But Kiwior, every time I see him play, I think he's a really good player. I think he's a really exciting talent. Left back. He just looks fine at left back. He's technically really, really good at centre back when he's played there. We've seen him being really, really good. He's just, I just think he's really exciting, a really exciting talent.
Clearly benefiting from those 6 months where he didn't play a lot, but he obviously learned at the feet of Gabriel and Arteta as well, learned what it means to be an Arsenal defender, because he was a proper Zinchenko style inverted wing back, and I think he always looks great when he plays in central defence as well. I struggle to think of many poor performances he's had this season. Really like him by all accounts as well. He's a good guy who's settled in well at training. I mean, we'll probably come to talk about this, in a month ahead and into January. But just a moment to talk about, if you were talking about a sort of ideal January transfer window, even though Arsenal didn't win the league in the end. Kiwior, Trossard, Jorginho, they signed 3 players who've, especially, I mean, last season, Trossard made a big impact. Jorginho had good moments as well. They've signed 3 really useful depth pieces, the sort that, are not breaking the bank, not breaking the wage bill. And it's, we don't really talk about it very much because it didn't quite get them across the finishing line, but it's probably made them a team that can compete now for the title this season because of the good business they did last season.
Yeah, it was a really good January transfer window, I thought, last season. Like you said, all 3 players have been impressive, and they've certainly made the squad a lot stronger. There's lots of talk about Kiwior at the moment, isn't there, from Italy, that Milan want him, but it wouldn't surprise me. Obviously, he came from Italy, and I'm sure Serie A clubs are looking at him and thinking, he's not playing too much at Arsenal. Can we take advantage of that? I don't think they could afford him anyway. If they did, I can't, because 25 million Arsenal paid for him, didn't they? You'd want a hell of a lot more than that now, even though he's not played that much. But and I can't see a Serie A side affording him. And from an Arsenal point of view, it'd be crazy to consider letting Kiwior go in January.
I mean, I saw just a tweet on this, so this isn't gospel. Apparently, in Poland, they're not that into him. Apparently, he's not playing that well for the Polish national team, who I think might not make the Euros. Build your team around Kiwior. Bin off Lewandowski. Don't need him. Jakub Kiwior. Make him your David Alaba.
I did see a quote from their manager in the last international break saying that he only wanted players who were playing regularly in the starting 11.
Yeah, beggars can't be choosers, mate.
Yeah, but I think you'd be very, very. You must have very strong options if you're a Polish national team manager and you're not starting Jakub Kiwior, because I think he's great, and Tommy Asu as well, really, really strong. And Arsenal need him at the moment because, as Mikel said, they are a little bit light defensively. But good news that Jurrien Timber should be out on the grass fairly soon. Obviously, no pressure. No one's going to be putting pressure on him to get back in rapid time. But if he could come back for the final couple of months of the season, that would be a big, big bonus. But we shall see on that. Right, we're coming up to the hour mark. I think that's a good time to call time on this one. And while there is still a little bit of daylight, so I'm not recording totally in the pitch black, that would be handy. What are your plans this weekend? Are you at the game on Saturday?
Nope, I am at Chelsea Brighton, which should be a really interesting game because I'm not, Chelsea play some nice football and they're not getting results.
Didn't play nice football last weekend when they got absolutely hammered.
We haven't even talked about United. I'm just pointing that out. We've not got much time to, but I presume you didn't see that game.
I was in the pub in Finsbury Park in the fullback again, and I left the pub at Galatasaray just made it 3-2. Or sorry, Andre Onana had just made it 3-2.
Made it 3-2.
And then we sort of left the pub. We turned down, started walking towards Finsbury Park Station to go down the road to Highbury, and walked past another pub and saw 3-3 on the score. So missed the equaliser. Still haven't seen it actually. The equaliser. I keep hearing it was a really good goal, but I haven't seen it
yet. It was a very good goal. I mean, as good as Arsenal Lens was, that is one of the best Champions League group stage games I have ever seen. Manchester United, they're just box office. Like, you can't look away from them. It's a car crash, but we're all going along the motorway and we're going, oh, that's a bad car crash.
Galatasaray are a bit box office though as well, aren't they? They're a fun team, Galatasaray. I was looking at their side. Yes, I was talking about it in the pub. It's like you got Ndombele, Zaha, Icardi,
Ziyech. You had
a lot of fun players.
You had a wild game.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun players in that team.
Wild game from Lucas Torreira. Could have won the game for Galatasaray. Could have lost it for Galatasaray. You sort of see him, and then you were like, I loved him to bits when he was in an Arsenal shirt. Kind of wish that had worked out better. Mm-hmm. But when he was playing that game, you're like, oh, maybe Mikel Arteta knows more about football than me.
Yeah. It's still bonkers. That whole group is so bonkers. And, United have lost 3, drawn 1. And I still wouldn't be at all surprised if they go through on that final game.
I would.
Would you?
I think Thomas Tuchel will turn up with a quite good team. And I don't think United would do that well against Bayern B.
They've already won the group, haven't they? They're absolute definition of on the beach for Bayern Munich. Why would you risk anything in that game? So yeah, which I heard Manuel Neuer made an amazing double save right at the end of their game against Copenhagen, didn't he? And had they scored, would United have been out?
It would have been out.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I just saw the tweet talking about Neuer's double save. So
is that the moment?
They are pretty fortunate to still be in that competition. Arsenal, though, are not. They are not fortunate to still be in it at all because they deserve to be where they are, and that is in the knockout stages, which is a fantastic way to end today's show. Cheers, James. I won't see you at the weekend. I'll be in the press box at Arsenal on Saturday, but and then are you going to Luton on Tuesday?
I hope so.
Yeah, I haven't had mine. I'm still pending. My accreditation request is still pending for Luton, but
I don't have great hopes. I'm assuming it's a tiny press box, so
I'm sure it probably is.
No judgment, but I would love to go. I'd really like to get to go to that game.
Yeah, hopefully, I shall see you there. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Appreciate your time as always. I'll be back tomorrow morning as usual with one of my usual shows as we really head towards the weekend's Premier League fixtures. Cheers, James, mate. I'll speak to you soon.
See you next week. Bye bye.